time to talk about a new nearly interstellar object that was just discovered in the inner solar system. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. That should be an intriguing discussion for sure, and I don't want to have it alone. If you are joining us on YouTube or on Facebook, go ahead, start listening, and start adding your questions there for Avi about C2025 V1 or whatever else you are wondering about happening in a galaxy far, far away. And I'll get those in to see what he has to say. Again, that will be at 1:30. We're going to check in with the House Democrats on Capitol Hill as a major vote is expected to happen today. Will House Democrats follow those 8 Democratic and independent senators and their same controversial path and vote to reopen the government today? We shall see. And what do they have to say now that a committee has released those Epstein emails? It's been a big talker of the day. Plus, the DNA Doe Project has identified new Buffalo Jane Doe after nearly 40 years. I mentioned there's a lot to get to, so let's start there with our first hour here. I want to go ahead and bring in Matthew, who is following. He is one of the directors of media and communications, Matthew Waterfield. Thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem. Good to be here today.
You know, sometimes when police detectives get on a case, the answers come relatively quickly, but we all know that there are plenty of families out there who wait days, weeks, years for answers and have some semblance of what happened to their loved ones. And I know that's where you all come in with the DNA Doe Project. We're talking about 71-year-old Dorothy Glanton today, who left her home in Chicago on December 9th, 1987, and never returned. Fill me in on more of the details in that case.
Sure. So we were brought onto a case of a woman who had been found dead in New Buffalo back in 1988. She had washed up on the shores of Lake Michigan and nobody knew who she was. She was actually initially believed to be a Caucasian woman between the ages of 35 and 45. So it came as a bit of a surprise when her DNA came through and it turned out she was African American. But it's something we sometimes see with these older cases. So a research team was assigned to the case. We actually began working on the case in person at a location in New Jersey back in summer 2023. And after that, we worked remotely from all parts of the world. There was an international team on this. And after our 8 weeks of research, we identified a candidate in the case, and that candidate was Dorothy Glanton, who, as it happens, had gone missing from Michigan in December 1987.
Yeah. You know, this case, as I understand it, has ties to the Great Migration and even enslavement. Take me back to that. How does it go back to those things?
So when we work on a case, we usually only have quite distant DNA matches to work with. And sometimes on African American cases, that can present a bit of a challenge. If the closest DNA matches we have are people whose common ancestors with our John and Jane Doe are from the 1700s or the early 1800s, that may be during the period of enslavement where the records just aren't available to us. So it was pretty tricky. We could see a number of families who our Jane Doe was connected to, but we struggled to tie the pieces together until one of the smaller DNA matches, we began working on his family tree and we began looking into his great grandmother and her family. And we found that a branch of her family had moved from Alabama to Chicago in the early 1920s. Because we knew that the Jane Doe might have been from Chicago based on where she washed up, that was pretty interesting to us. So we homed in on that family. And that was when we came across Dorothy, who was born in Alabama, but who had come to Chicago along with many other African Americans back in the early 1920s. So we were a little bit suspicious as to whether or not it was her, considering the age range that we had in mind was 35 to 45. And Dorothy would have been in her 70s at the time that this Jane Doe's body washed up in Lake Michigan, but it later turned out she had disappeared from Chicago just 4 months prior, and at that point we were pretty confident that we did indeed have the right person.
Wow. You know, so many years later, there are still a lot of concerns regarding the treatment of cases regarding missing Black women and girls. There are whole podcasts dedicated to that particular topic. What does that say to you?
I think that in the past, there's often been a sense that cases of missing people, regardless of race, but often specifically with African Americans, maybe weren't taken as seriously 40, 50 years ago as they should have been. We've certainly heard that from families in other cases that we've worked on. While I can't comment on the specifics of Dorothy's case, I think it is a powerful reminder of the technology we have these days to reunite people with their identities, and how regardless of ethnic background, whether the Doe is Caucasian or Hispanic or African American, there are different challenges that face us as genealogists as we work with those from different communities, but it is possible to overcome those challenges. And the more people from different populations that upload their DNA data to the databases we have access to, the likelier it is that we'll be able to identify people from those populations. So in Dorothy's case, it was really one match that made all the difference.
Wow.
He likely had no idea that he was related to a Jane Doe, but thanks to his DNA upload, we were able to identify his missing, many times removed cousin.
It is tremendous. It really is. And it speaks to the advancements in technology. I'd like you maybe to delve a little bit deeper into that, because what would have been available those many years ago has changed so much since.
I mean, the difference between now and the 1980s is immense. You know, often it can be easy sometimes to look back in cases from the 1980s and say, you know, how come this mistake was made? But, you know, at the time, investigators were working with what they had. For example, the age estimate in this case, they were pretty off, you know, 35 to 45, and she ended up being 71. But the tools available to anthropologists, to investigators and whatnot, back then it was a hell of a lot trickier. And nowadays we have the benefit of things like advanced DNA technologies, which helped reveal Dorothy's ethnicity. And then we had members of the public who had been willing to upload their DNA to databases we can use, which allowed us, through a convoluted, complicated process of building family trees and whatnot, to actually home in on this woman who, again, it turns out had gone missing from Chicago. So the technology that we have nowadays is what's allowing us to make these strides. I hope in the years to come there are future technological developments that allow us to make even more progress on some of these John and Jane Doe cases that have gone unsolved for so long.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, there's has to be mixed feelings when a family gets that type of information decades later. You know, maybe some feelings of closure that you feel good about it from that standpoint of at least you have some answers now, but at the same time, finally knowing that, you know, your relative met that type of demise. Are there any other cases that really stand out to you that you all have worked on?
You know, there was one case that I worked on a number of years back, and it was the case of a man named Johnny, what we now know to be Johnny Brandenburg. He was actually from Chicago. He was a victim of a serial killer, Larry Eiler, and we identified him very quickly. It only took 5 days, and his mother had been waiting 40 years to learn what happened to him. And when the coroner went and delivered the news to her, was the awful news that your teenage son was the victim of a serial killer, but she had gone so many years without answers. And she told the coroner when he informed her of the news, I've waited 40 years to know what happened to Johnny, and now I finally know what happened. I can rest. So I think a lot of the time, even when a family might not get closure, so to speak, from answers in a case like this, they at least have those answers. There's no more of this ambiguous loss that they deal with. They know what happened to their loved one, and they can grieve them properly, knowing that they have passed away, but knowing what happened to them.
Absolutely. And speaking more about the closure for families, what is the reaction when you interact with a family along the way? I mean, at what point do you all, you know, talk to the family about what you all do on a regular basis, and what is their typical response to you all getting on board for a case?
So I say it's relatively uncommon for us to interact with direct relatives of a John or Jane Doe fairly frequently, but there was recently a documentary series that came out about our work with Naming the Dead. It was a 6-part series, and it focused on 6 cases of John or Jane Does that the DNA Doe Project had worked on and identified. And the families of those people were interviewed for that show. That was interesting to us as an organization. We had never really seen the families' immediate reactions before, and it was kind of broadly a pretty positive response, all things considered, in terms of, yes, we have this loved one who's been missing for all this time. Yes, we now know that they're not going to walk back through the door. But for a lot of those people, they'd already come to terms with the fact that their loved one had passed away. They just didn't know how or where. So to have those answers for them brought a real sense of relief, I think, for a lot of people. That's a reaction we often, not always, but often tend to see with people when they finally have those answers.
Yeah, and how can people help with you all's mission? can hear, some dollar signs in my head when it comes to resources and how do you all fund these missions that might take quite a bit of time?
So what makes the DNA Doe Project rather unique is that we actually do all of the genealogy research pro bono. Agencies don't pay a cent for the work that we do, and regardless of whether it takes 10 hours or 10,000 hours, as it sometimes does, to identify a John or Jane Doe, we will put in that work. The costly part is the lab fees. To actually get to the point where we can work on these cases, you have to send the samples to a lab, they need to undergo extraction, sequencing, costly scientific steps that often are quite money intensive. So we would encourage people to go to DNADoeProject.org and consider making a donation if you'd like to help support our mission and ensure that others can be reunited with their identities. I would also say that for anyone out there who's taken the consumer DNA test, think 23andMe, MyHeritage, companies like that, you can actually then download your DNA data, and if you'd like to, upload your DNA profile to DNA Justice or GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. These are the three databases that we have access to for our work. And even if you have no idea of any missing people in your family, it's not something that's been on your radar, you might have a third cousin out there in a completely different part of the US who has been missing for decades. And by uploading your DNA, you could be that crucial match that actually allows us to identify that distant missing relative of yours. You just never know.
Is your work typically welcomed by police departments?
We've been met with a pretty positive reception by more or less everyone we've worked with, to be fair. I think as the years have gone on, police departments and coroner's officers too have become much keener as they become more comfortable with this technology to embrace the usage of what we do. So we work very well with our law enforcement partners, and I'm always glad to see new police departments, coroner's officers, medical examiners, and so forth embracing this technology, because it really is providing answers in a lot of cases where otherwise you just wouldn't get that resolution.
Yeah, and absolutely. You identify a person, but then there could end up being a court case afterward once you've identified who the person is. Has that happened several times for you all?
I can think of a couple of cases actually where we've identified a John or Jane Doe, and often much later down the line, that has later led police to clues that have allowed them to then make an arrest when that John or Jane Doe is a victim of homicide. Some of our victims have died of natural causes, others may have taken their own lives, some have died in natural disasters. But in those cases where the John or Jane Doe is a victim of homicide, knowing that person's name is often a crucial step for investigators to then find out who did this to them and bring them to justice.
Yeah, well, thank you for the work that you all do in helping so many families out there. How many cases have you all helped to solve at this point?
We have solved about just over 150. I received word shortly before the school that we've just solved another.
Oh, wow.
So we are literally cracking these every other day at this point. And I look forward to solving 150 more in the months and years to come.
Absolutely. Do you have any details about the one that you all just solved that you want to tell us about?
I'm afraid because it was literally solved a matter of hours ago, we haven't had the chance to confirm it or anything else yet. But later down the line, we hope to share more details. And we certainly have more confirmation identifications coming all the time.
Sure. Come on back on the show when you have an update, especially if it comes back here to Chicago, like this case of 71-year-old Dorothy Glanton. Thank you again for what you all do for so many families.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's just about 1:15 right now. I mentioned that today is a big day, and when it comes to politics, of course, House Democrats and really faced with a big task here as to whether they will go along with Republicans and vote to reopen the government today. We want to take you to Washington, D.C., as they are now gathering. This is a Save Healthcare rally that they're having here. Let's listen in.
Healthcare crisis that Republicans have created, $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, and gutting the ACA in order to pay for the tax break for the ultra wealthy, is making things so much harder. So let me give you an example. A couple in my district, they actually go to my church, called and told me they're in their 60s and they rely on the ACA tax credits to pay their insurance premiums. But now, because the Republicans have failed to extend these credits, their insurance premiums are going to jump by $11,000 next year. An impossible sum for people on the edge of retirement. Health insurance already consumes 72% of their retirement income. Let me say that again. 72% of their retirement income, and is about to go up another $11,000. That means they're facing devastating choices between doctor's visits and paying the mortgage, between cancer screenings and putting food on the table, between prescription drugs and heating their home, or even, frankly, to get insurance at all. They told me, and this is a direct quote, they are strongly considering going without coverage and taking their chances rather than continuing to pay the premium. Because here's the reality, they actually can't pay that premium. I came to Congress, we all came to Congress to help people like them, lower cost, better care, more jobs. One easy critical step is simply passing to extend the ACA credits. It is time we pass it before they pay.
Okay, again, they're listening to House Democrats as they rally. Speaking of saving health care, that was a big part, a sticking point for them going into the government shutdown, and it was not a part of the Senate bill that passed. So now that this bill is with the House, it has to go through the House before it gets to the president. There's a big question for House Democrats as to how they will respond. So we're going to continue to watch what's happening there. Want to bring things back home here because there are plenty of things that are developing right now. Reporter Kasey Chronis has the latest developments regarding a fallout from the Broadview ICE Processing Center protest. A federal indictment charged 6 people, including a congressional candidate, for allegedly conspiring to impede a federal officer. They're now known as the Broadview 6 today. Kasey, what happened today? Okay, we lost our live shot from Kasey Chronis, but we know that the Broadview 6 was in court today. There was a rally that was held outside of the federal court building as this hearing was set to begin. Again, it's about an indictment for 6 people who were charged with impeding officers, injuring an officer there at the Broadview ICE Processing Center that's really been at the hub of the debate over immigration enforcement here in Illinois during Operation Midway Blitz. The processing center is not new. It's been around for decades. But what's been new is that the ramped up immigration efforts have put more people in that facility. So there have been protests there since really August, but they really ramped up September and October. We started to see them getting a little bit more and more chaotic, especially on Fridays. We saw several people who are seeking upward mobility in terms of politics, candidates who were going out there as well. And one of those candidates and also a committee person ended up as a part of this Broadview 6. The 6 people that are in this indictment for impeding federal officers' operation and their efforts there at that facility. And so they were in court today waiting to find out exactly how that went. And it comes in the midst of several more issues regarding that particular facility. And in fact, we know that today we also learned that a district court judge is now ordering people who have been taken to the Broadview ICE facility to be released. This was new information that came in. Again, there are several court orders going on right now. We have federal court, a district court judge, and so there's a lot that we're monitoring at the moment regarding the Broadview ICE processing facility. And as we get that information in, we're going to continue to update you on that. But let's go back and listen into what's happening in Washington for a few moments.
All because they will stop at nothing to cut your health care. The only thing that congressional Republicans are more loyal to than Donald Trump is to cutting the health care of the American people. Let's be clear. This healthcare crisis is a choice by congressional Republicans and Donald Trump, who have inserted a $1 trillion bomb into the American healthcare system. And it is starting to go off. Millions right now are facing skyrocketing premiums. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history is on the horizon. Rural hospitals will close. Doctors' offices will shutter. Donald Trump loves to own things and slap his name on them. Well, he now owns the American healthcare system. It is Trump care. Millions losing coverage, that's Trump care. Americans paying more for insurance, that's Trump care. Everyone having to drive longer and take more time off work, that is Trump care. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans have raided your health care and used that money as a piggy bank to reward their donors with massive tax breaks. Cruelty is the currency of his corruption, because Donald Trump only cares about himself, his ballroom, and his billionaire buddies, and he certainly doesn't care about you. House Democrats are here for everyone, whether they voted for us in the last election or not. I'm here on behalf of all of my constituents, including a family of 4 in Middletown who will see their premiums skyrocket by $10,000 next year. That's why we are all voting against this budget, and it's why we will not stop until every single American can get the health care that they need to live and thrive in America. Thank you all very much. And it is now my pleasure to introduce my friend from the great state of Alabama, Representative Shamari Figures.
Thank you. You know, House Democrats just spent the better part of the last 40-plus days fighting to keep health care affordable for millions of Americans, while our House Republican colleagues were on a taxpayer-funded vacation. During this shutdown, the realities hit home for a lot of people. Mothers had to worry about how they would take care of their children, their babies, without WIC. Families stood in pantry lines. Families are still standing in food pantry lines. In the month of November, the month of Thanksgiving, because SNAP benefits were expired, and this administration chose to use them as pawns in this game. Capitol Police officers, members of the military, my staff, all of our staff, and millions of other federal workers had to deal with the uncertainty and the stresses of missing paychecks. And for what in the end? What were Republicans willing to give in the end? Nothing more than a handshake deal to take a future vote on extending the health care subsidies, when we all know that that future vote is the equivalent of asking 2 wolves and a chicken to vote on what's for dinner. It is dead on arrival. It is dead on arrival. Now, I can speak to you as someone from a different perspective. A lot of us represent districts where we can talk about what could happen or what may happen. Let me tell you about what my district looks like in the state of Alabama. And it doesn't look too dissimilar from my fellow colleague from Alabama, Congresswoman Terry Sewell's district. I got about 50,000 people in my district who are slated to see their health care premiums on average nearly double. And this is in a district where the individual median income is just north of $32,000. I have 13 counties in my district. 10 of them either do not have a hospital because it has recently closed, or their hospital is on literal life support and they have to go to a county commission or a city council every single month to make payroll. And the largest hospital in Montgomery, Alabama, the state's capital, is in the midst of a bankruptcy and also facing risk of closure. And this all in a state that has the 3rd lowest life expectancy in the United States of America. So healthcare for us is not a talking point. Healthcare for us is, protecting healthcare for us is a requisite. It's a requirement. It's something we have to do. And if you ask us if the shutdown was worth it, I say, hell yes, it was worth it. Because fighting to maintain health care for American people, there's nothing more pure than that. There's no more important role that we have here as members of Congress than to ensure the health care of the American people. Okay. And so while the failure of Republicans to do anything to protect health care is truly disappointing, I want the world to know that my Democratic colleagues here in the House, they can ride with me in any battle I face in my life. They stood with us under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries to make sure that we kept this front and center. And I look forward to remaining committed to this fight for all of Alabama and for all of America. And with that, turn it back over to our leader, future Speaker Jeffries.
I want to thank all of our distinguished colleagues who spoke so powerfully and eloquently about the nature of this fight that we continue to wage on behalf of the American people. And these are first-term members of Congress. But they recognize that as Democrats, we stand on the shoulders of many who, decade after decade, century into century, have always fought to make life better for everyday Americans and to protect the health care and enhance the health care of the American people. That's the continuing and enduring legacy of the Democratic Party. FDR fought for it. Truman fought for it. JFK fought for it. LBJ fought for it. Carter fought for it. Clinton fought for it. Barack Obama fought for it. Biden fought for it. And no one fought harder in the House of Representatives than our Speaker Emerita, Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. That's in the DNA of the Democratic Party. From FDR to Nancy Pelosi to these first-term members. And so our promise to the American people is that we are in this fight until we win this fight for all of you. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
All right, we were listening in there to the end of the press conference, a Save Healthcare rally that House Democrats were having. Again, today is a really big day in the House as they have not been together for about 50 days, actually, 40 that have been a part of the government shutdown here, but they have still received paychecks. But they were talking about the realities hitting home for so many people in their districts. Congressman Shamari Figures from Alabama speaking there about people missing paychecks and what he called a handshake deal for a future vote for health care subsidies that took place in the Senate, that being the vote that took place on Monday night. For the senators, there were 8 who decided to, they were Democrats and 1 independent from Maine, who decided to go along with Republicans to open up the government. But these House Democrats now are saying they are committed to a fight. Right after Congressman Figures, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries came right behind him, just talking about the fact of the legacy, they say, of the Democratic Party in fighting for people. But obviously, you know, there are multiple ways of looking at this government shutdown, each party kind of digging in, trying to take some type of a victory from what has taken place over the last several days. President Trump saying that his party, Republicans, stayed together, they stayed committed to not budging to Democrats, what they called holding them hostage over the last 40 days in this government shutdown, and that they waited for someone to budge, someone to blink, and that was those 8 people, the Democrats and also 1 independent there. And they had various reasons, many of them coming forward over the last several days to kind of explain each one as to why they made the decision that they did. Some of them that had been on board all along for the government to remain open, and some of them that kind of came across at the last minute. You know, Virginia Senator Tim Kane saying that, well, the bulk of his district has federal workers who are furloughed. So kind of having different ways of looking at things, and they've all been explaining that over this time. So again, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries standing with these other members of his party there, several first-term congressmen and women who were speaking and saying they are committed to a fight. We will see how this goes. I believe that House Republicans can only lose 2 votes, 2 members of their party to switch over to vote with the Democrats to try to keep the government in this stalemate right now. We'll see what happens later today when that vote goes forward and how things progress from there. But it's 1:30. Let's take a quick break. And you know what's on the opposite side of it. If you don't, I will remind you. Avi Loeb, Harvard astrophysicist that so many people love. And we're taking questions from you. Welcome back, everyone. It's 1:33 right now, and as we look to try to do some new things with this new space that we've been given, this time with you that we have each day, we want to incorporate you as often as possible. And so today we are taking your questions for the one and only Avi Loeb. He's a Harvard astrophysicist. We always love having him here on the show, and now there's a new nearly interstellar object that was just discovered, and we could think of no one better to explain it all to us and enlighten us on what's going on in a galaxy far, far away. Let's go ahead and bring in Avi. Thank you so much for being back with us.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, tell us about this new discovery.
Well, on November 2nd, Gennady Borisov, an amateur astronomer, discovered an object near the sun that is actually barely bound to the sun. So it's almost interstellar, but most likely it came from the outskirts of the solar system, the Oort cloud. And that was surprising because that's around the time, the same week, that another interstellar object passed close to the sun, 3I Atlas. That one we are confident is interstellar because it was moving at 60 kilometers per second, very high speed, 600 times larger than the fastest car we have on Earth. The reason I know that is because I went to a NASCAR car race where the racer put 3I Atlas on the hood of his car, and I told him that's not a big compliment for 3I Atlas because it's already moving 600 times faster than your car can ever reach. But at any event, so 3I Atlas was definitely not bound to the sun. This new object appears to be barely bound to the sun, may have come from the outskirts of the solar system and was in a plunging orbit that got all the way close to the sun, and we just noticed it. Now, the interesting question is, could it have originated from 3I Atlas? Is it at all related to it? Because if 3I Atlas, for example, is a natural comet, it could have lost a fragment, a piece of it that was torn apart. If it is a mothership, a spacecraft, it could have on purpose released a probe into the inner solar system. So that's an interesting question. And turns out that this object has an orbit in a plane that is almost perpendicular to the plane of the orbit of 3I Atlas. So if we just use gravity to calculate its trajectory, it was definitely not related to 3I Atlas. The closest they got to each other is of order 100 million kilometers, so not very close. And so the two are unrelated. It's just a coincidence that two unusual objects showed up around the same time close to the sun. However, if it's a technological object, of course it could have maneuvered and transited between the two trajectories that appear to be distinct from each other.
Wow. Okay, I mentioned the fact that we have asked for our viewers to kind of chime in here and ask some or pose some questions for you. 10th Crane is asking, if Atlas originated from the nearest star, how long has it been traveling?
Right, so for it to arrive close to the sun from the outskirts, the outer boundary of the solar system, that's the edge of the Oort cloud, so-called Oort cloud. It's 100,000 times the Earth-Sun separation. It took it 8,000 years to travel from there to its location right now. 8,000 years is when humans started recording their history. So 8,000 years ago is the oldest records we have of human history. So that's in cosmological terms, it's not a long time. Now we don't know where it originated. What is its parent star? It could have come from very far away, and then it took it many billions of years to arrive here. If it's a natural object, 3I Atlas, then based on its speed, it has a high speed. It could have originated from an old star, because old stars, they get kicked around for much longer and they acquire larger speeds than young stars. So A calculation that I did with my student indicates that in that case, it's probably 10 billion years old, maybe 7 billion years old, older than the sun. Okay, so the star that hosted it would have been older, but we don't really know where it came from, and we don't know how high was the ejection speed of that object 3I Atlas from the parent star. So we don't know for sure the duration of its journey. If it's technological, of course, all bets are off, because the question is, where are the senders? You know, they can be very near, in which case the journey was very short, or they can be far, and then obviously they sent it out before even knowing that we exist.
Oh, my brain is spinning like the sun or one of the planets. I don't know. But okay, Rob here, and we're trying to get to as many questions as possible. Rob says, why don't we see more interstellar visitors, considering the size of our solar system?
Oh, there are. If we're talking about visitors that arrive at random, you know, rocks, for example, or icy rocks, then for everyone that we see in the inner solar system within the separation of the Earth from the Sun, there should be a quadrillion, right now, 10 to the power 15 such objects within the solar system as a whole, going out to 100,000 times the Earth-Sun separation. The reason is simple. The volume of the solar system at 100,000 times the Earth-Sun separation, 100,000 is basically 100,000 cubed times the volume associated with the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. So for everyone you see near us, you know, between the Earth and the Sun, there should be a quadrillion right now in the solar system. So definitely a very big number. And what it means is also that if we find one, every star should have produced a quadrillion of those if they come at random, because the volume of associated with every star is roughly the volume that the solar system has around the Sun.
There's just so much that we don't know. Just so you know, someone commented from a friend, you should be the boss of NASA. But from Andre, he says, would you be happy or concerned if Atlas is a spacecraft?
Oh, I would be very happy, because I think humanity desperately needs a dose of cosmic modesty. We lack humility. You know, we say perhaps we are at the top of the food chain in the universe, not just on Earth. You know, we go to restaurants and eat other animals because we think that they are less intelligent than we are. We would never eat an animal that is more intelligent than we are. But of course, we can be arrogant here on Earth so far. Maybe AI systems will make us a little bit more modest. But my hope is that we would realize that we have siblings out there among the stars, and those siblings, some of them, are far more accomplished than we are. So it will teach us modesty. But on top of that, we could learn from them. It's just like learning from a smarter student in a classroom.
Well, I definitely feel like I'm in school right now from Hug. What would happen if something like Atlas were to crash into Earth?
Oh, that would be devastating. It would be similar to what happened to the non-avian dinosaurs when they witnessed a rock, an asteroid the size of Manhattan Island colliding with Earth. They basically perished, they died. And the same kind of catastrophe would occur if 3I Atlas were to crash on Earth. And gladly, it doesn't look like it's approaching very close to Earth. It will come within about 250 million kilometers from Earth on December 19th. That would allow us to observe it with our best telescopes and get much more information about it. As of the last few days, we got images that show that there are more than 7 jets coming out of it. And you know, one possibility is that these jets are powered by ice, pockets of ice that is being illuminated by sunlight and warmed up, and the ice sublimates, and you end up with these jets. They go out to millions of kilometers away from the object. But another possibility is these are technological thrusters on a spacecraft. And we can easily tell the difference because technological thrusters produce velocities that are far in excess of what you can get from some pocket of ice being illuminated, warmed up by sunlight. So we can measure the speed of those jets in the coming weeks, and then immediately know the nature of this object. So that's why science is so much fun, because it's like a detective story. We can figure out the truth by collecting clues.
So you're like the Sherlock Holmes of astronomy. All right. Miguel is asking, why are you the only scientist speaking in serious terms about what this could be?
Well, scientists are used to dealing with objects at great distances. For example, imagine a galaxy at the edge of the universe. It's billions of light years away. And therefore, they are used to having no consequence to what they are saying about that galaxy, because it will not affect our life in any way. And therefore they can just adapt the most likely interpretation and stick with it. However, when we have a visitor to our backyard, there is a risk from it. If it's technological, it might be a threat to humanity. And we all know, I mean, governments know, intelligence agencies know that we must take seriously low probability events that could have huge implications on society. And so I regard this visit of an interstellar object as one example. Even if we assign a low likelihood for it to be technological or a threat to humanity, we must take it seriously, collect as much data as possible so we can figure out its nature and make sure that it's just a rock. And that's something that scientists don't fully understand, because for them it's just a question of what is the most likely explanation. The other thing I should say about experts is that, for example, comet experts, they are used to comets. And it's just like an AI system, artificial intelligence system, that is being trained on a data set that includes only comets. So whatever the AI system says would be that related to comets. It would just say any space object is comets. That's exactly what the experts are doing. They are trained on a data set of comets. They will say anything in the sky is comets. That's their expertise. But I say to them, please expand your training data set, because we sent out spacecraft. Okay, so in addition to rocks, we know that in space you can find technological objects. We did it. So then why wouldn't you include in your training data set the possibility that an object coming from outside the solar system might be technological? And they just don't get it. And they attack me and criticize me for not believing that this object must be a comet.
Okay, well, Skywatch wants to know if you think NASA's lab closures could be slowing down investigations.
Well, there was data collected on 3I Atlas when it came within 29 million kilometers from Mars. It was taken by the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it's the sharpest image that we should have at this time, with a 30-kilometer resolution per pixel. And unfortunately, it happened on October 3rd, which was 2 days after the government shutdown started. And the claim from NASA is that due to bureaucratic rules, they are unable to release that data to the rest of the scientific community or to the public. And as of now, we haven't seen it for 42 days. So the data exists on some computer, but they were never shared with other scientists. And I believe that this is just a result of bureaucracy overruling science. And I don't like that, because I think bureaucracy should serve science, not sabotage or take hostage science. And so I think someone high up in the administration of NASA should have said, this doesn't make sense. Let's share the data. We have it. It doesn't require much work. Let's just share it, at the very least, with scientists, because that would help them design future observations. And it didn't happen. So I'm just waiting for the government shutdown to end very soon so we can look at those images.
Yeah, well, I think we're all waiting on the government shutdown to end for many different reasons. But tell us about the Galileo project that you lead.
Right. So I started to lead it a few years ago. And the idea is that the US government, the intelligence agencies are reporting to the US Congress that there are objects in the sky that they cannot identify. And the simplest interpretation is these are objects manufactured by adversarial nations. And therefore, it's a national security threat. That's a real issue because we put $1 trillion a year in the defense budget of 2026, and yet the Pentagon is unable to tell us what some objects in the sky are. And so they're not doing their job. That's a serious matter. Now, of course, it's possible that these are not human-made objects. Maybe they came from an extraterrestrial origin, in which case it would be even more fascinating to me because I'm an astronomer. I care what lies outside the solar system. I don't care much about what humans can do here on Earth. I want to know what's outside. And of course, if it ends up that one or more of these objects are extraterrestrial in origin, that would be the most important discovery that humanity ever made, scientifically speaking. So I decided to lead a project that is constructing observatories. Right now we have 3 of them, and we are monitoring millions of objects on the sky every year. Starting recently, we just started to collect data in this way, and we are analyzing it with machine learning software, trying to see if any of the objects behave in ways that do not match the flight characteristics of human-made technologies. And that's what the Galileo project is about. We also had an expedition to the Pacific Ocean to collect materials from an interstellar meteor, just to check if it's not a Voyager-like meteor, an object that collided with Earth that was technological. We know it was interstellar. The US Space Command confirmed that. And so we're still analyzing the materials that we retrieved there. And in addition, of course, I'm doing my research on interstellar objects like Oumuamua, the first one discovered in 2017 that looked quite anomalous, and 3I Atlas, which is very intriguing. We are still in the process of getting more data on it.
All right. Only time for a couple more questions. Thank you so much for being willing to take so many questions from our viewers. They heard Avi Loeb and the questions just started rolling in here. But so as I hear it, Atlas comes closest to the Earth right around Christmas time, maybe like a week before Christmas. So even though we have folks who book interviews around here, we want to go ahead and get you on the books and to say that you'll come back.
Yeah, I will definitely do it.
Okay, all right. We will talk to you then. And I also, you mentioned, the government shutdown and the situation with NASA. I have to loop back into our last conversation where you were a little bit miffed that NASA had reached back out or the government had reached back out to Kim Kardashian before you, and you threw out a lob to Kim Kardashian. Did she reach out to you?
Not yet. I look forward. I will be delighted to give her all the information I know. And just illustrate how science is done. It's like a detective story. It's a lot of fun, and I'm sure Kim will enjoy it. So if she listens, I would be delighted to speak with her. I don't see myself as a member of a group of people that is privileged in academia in any way. I see myself just a member of the public, and and therefore everyone is curious about this object, and we can do it together, figure out what it is based on the clues that we collect. We don't need the bureaucrats to tell us what it is. We can just figure it out the way kids do. It's really a privilege to maintain my childhood curiosity and get paid for it. That's the biggest gift that I can imagine, and that's what science brings.
Well, you are for sure certain about the fact that there are a lot of people who are curious. And just again, when we post that you're going to be on the show, there's a ton of people who respond. So there are a lot of people who are just as curious.
Well, the biggest reward over the past few weeks for me was emails I get from parents who tell me my daughter now wants to become a scientist. No. And that to me is the greatest accomplishment that I can have, because surely there are many puzzles that we haven't cracked yet, and the next generation will help us get better. I believe that the future will be better than the past.
Avi Loeb, we certainly hope that. Thank you for coming on yet again, and we'll see you right before Christmas.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll talk to you then. It's 1:53. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. It's 1:55, and I mentioned right off the top of the show that one of our other conversations for this hour would be Meals on Wheels Chicago, as they are doing all they can to make sure that our senior citizens who are so valued in our communities don't go without nutritious food during this time of the government shutdown and SNAP benefits that are being cut. I want to go ahead and bring in Board President Shannon Murphy to talk a little bit about their new efforts and the senior center pantry distributions that they'll be doing this month. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
I surely appreciate it. I'd like for you to kind of wind back the clock a bit before the government shutdown. Tell me how things were at that point in time compared to years past.
Yeah, I think that the situation that we're facing right now, it actually has always been there. Our seniors in Chicago have been in need of food for years past. Certainly the pandemic, if we want to go even further, really put some pressure on our services. And then you get to today and you layer in the pressures from the SNAP reduction and the government shutdown, and it only just increases the demand, and we're feeling that pressure already.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what does that pressure look like for you all?
Yeah, so we've had an increase in demand of seniors and people living with disabilities signing up for our programs. We host pantries at our senior centers across the city, and we're seeing people showing up there in need of food. And so that pressure for us looks like we need funding and support in order to increase the amount of food that we distribute and the number of pantries that we can host a month.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that, what you all are going to be doing moving forward during this time.
We have answered the call of our seniors who are living across every neighborhood in Chicago. They need food. And so coming up in November, we are actually going to be hosting 2 additional pantries at the senior centers. We have November 20th and 21st, and those additional pantries will be hosted at our Southeast Regional Senior Center and Southwest Regional Senior Centers. And we hand out fresh produce, protein, and we typically get about 200 to 350 seniors visiting each pantry. It's a little bit of a different pantry experience than some of the other pantries across the city in that all of the food is fresh. Actually, the food that we serve at the pantry is the same food that most of the Chicago restaurants across the city leverage. So it's really high quality, healthy, nutritious food. We also have programming at those senior centers where we do chef demonstrations and teach our seniors how to prepare dishes with the ingredients that we're handing out.
Yeah, I volunteered with Meals on Wheels several times, and there's nothing like the joy. We were doing distribution, going to seniors' homes. There's just nothing like the joy of going to that door and seeing someone who really you owe so much to, for where they are in life. Tell me about the effect that you all have on so many different folks who may not interact with a lot of people on a given day. Those visits really mean something.
They do. I love that you mentioned the joy that came from your experience delivering meals. That is a common thing that we hear. It's maybe a little more of an unknown fact that so first, 1 in 6 seniors in Chicago are food insecure. So the number of people who we're delivering meals to is really high. And that most of those people, over 80% of those people actually say that their delivery driver who drops off their food is the only person that they interact with all week. So it is a really meaningful moment for our seniors, obviously, because they're getting food and nutrition and, the things that they need to age in place and have that autonomy to live in their home. But also really, and maybe equally as important, is that interaction with their driver. It's a moment of human connection where, otherwise these people are often very lonely. And it's something that it's really important to our mission that, that's part of wellness and well-being that we also deliver outside of the food.
Yeah, it's literally nourishing more than the body, but the soul for those that you're delivering to. But then also it has that same effect for those who are participating with you. So tell me, if people are listening to you right now and they're thinking, well, I want to help out in their mission, what do they need to do?
Yeah, there's a few ways. We definitely, as I mentioned at the top, the strain with some of the SNAP benefits and just the overall kind of market that exists. We need funding. We need more money to be able to buy the food and to keep our programs and our services going. So if you have the means and the ability to donate, we would really appreciate it. We have a program that we're putting some special emphasis behind that we call Monthly Meal Makers. And it's essentially an opportunity for people listening to sign up to donate on a recurring monthly basis, whatever amount is appropriate for the person. But even $30, $1 a day goes so far for us, and it enables Meals on Wheels Chicago to have consistent funds to keep our programs going and know that we have, the funds in the future to plan ahead. Yeah. So donation is really big for us. We do have volunteer opportunities at the pantries that I mentioned to distribute food in that forum, and get people involved, spread the word, talk about the issues that our seniors are facing today, and help us spread our mission.
Yeah, I think it's something that's great for people of all ages to participate in, and especially young people even, to be able to connect with seniors in that special way. As you were talking, and even when I saw that we were doing this interview today, I thought about the fact that, we're talking about SNAP cuts that, of course, affect the people you serve, but Meals on Wheels was one of the organizations that was hit pretty hard by funding cuts.
It was. I think it's just a general funding environment that everyone is feeling the constraint of the amount of money that's available. And so it's really important to us at Meals on Wheels of Chicago that we lean on the community and our neighbors to support those who quite literally live next door to them and who are homebound and need our services. So it's a really important time to get involved.
Yeah, and as we go into the holiday months too, talk about the fact that just what this time of year means for an organization like yours, even in a normal year.
Yeah, the holiday season, particularly anytime you're talking about food, I mean, food and the holidays just go hand in hand, right? And so, of course, there is that added element to how important, food brings people together around the holidays. And for our seniors, we want to be able to give that to them, even if they're at home and maybe in some cases isolated. But the holiday season, it obviously increases our costs because there are so many more days that Meals on Wheels Chicago has to support. Some of the holidays go unfunded. So we need the support of the community to help us make sure that those holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's are all days that our seniors and people living with disabilities can have a meal at the table.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go back around to November 20th and 21st, your new pantry distribution dates. Is there anything that people need to do if they're going to be a part of this from a standpoint of need?
You are absolutely welcome to go to our website and donate, but also there's opportunities to volunteer at those pantries. All of that information is listed on our website. So it's mealsonwheelschicago.org.
But if people are going to come out who need you all's help, is there anything they need to do?
Just sign up to volunteer.
If people are going to be getting the services that you provide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if they're getting the services, they can come to the senior centers and we'll be ready.
Okay, wonderful. And time of day, what time do they need to arrive?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the time, it's around noon, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, all right. I certainly hope that plenty of people show up who both need your help, but those who are wanting an opportunity to help out as well and be of service as well. Thank you for what you all do on a regular basis. Meals on Wheels is just so special. So again, Board President Shannon Murphy for Meals on Wheels Chicago.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you. It's 2:06 right now, and let me just give you the lineup for our 2 o'clock hour before we take a quick break here. We have plenty more to come. We took you in the 1 o'clock hour to Democrats, House Democrats that were having a rally about health care. They're going to have several of those opportunities coming up throughout the rest of the day as they have now come back to Washington, D.C. with this major decision on the table as to whether they vote to reopen the government along with Republicans. Those that we heard from in the 1 o'clock hour say they are in for the fight. They want to continue to fight for these health care subsidies, the premiums that could go up at the start of a new year. And so we may have another opportunity to hear from them. This would specifically be Democratic women, House Republicans, the women who are going to be talking about health care in this hour. Also, we're going to be bringing in some folks from Burr Ridge to talk about a debate, if you will, that's happening over the zip code there and whether that could possibly change, or at least those who are pushing for it to. We're going to go to one of our multimedia reporters who's going to talk about another aspect of the government shutdown that has been much talked about this week, and that is the flight delays and cancellations. In this hour yesterday, we were listening into Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who was talking about the fact that things could get way worse. On last Friday, cuts started happening to air traffic by about 4%. By yesterday, that was sitting at 6%. And he says by Friday, that could be 10%, and it could get even worse. Of course, we're looking at holiday travel coming up in just 2 weeks. There's also the aspect of it where air traffic controllers and their pay, they've missed 2 full paychecks, where that comes into play. We'll talk more with Chelsea Torres coming up around 2:30. And we're going to talk about the Northern Lights. So many people, we've had so many great videos and pictures that have come into the station of sky watchers or gazers last night who were able to see magnificent displays. We'll talk more about the Northern Lights and maybe another opportunity to catch them if you didn't see them last night. It's 2:08 though. Let's take a quick break and we'll get to it. (2:12). Welcome back, everyone. And right now, Burr Ridge, one of our great suburbs, shares its zip code with Willowbrook. It's 60527. But there's a new push for them to get their own thing. And we want to talk with Mayor Gary Grasso about this new effort to see some new things for your area. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Is this a new push or is it a renewed push?
It is a renewed push. We've been searching for a new zip code since 2008. And we are part of now a national code coalition of about 80 communities that stretch over 26 states that are also trying to get their own zip code. I was just in Washington with our village administrator, and 8 other mayors were the lead group. We were lobbying the Senate side in Washington, D.C. 2 bills have passed. They'll probably be joined together with all 80 communities in it. And so it's passed the House of Representatives, and it's in the Senate, where we hope to get a favorable decision, if not by the end of the year, sometime in 2026.
Yeah, the House and the Senate have been pretty busy this week. But
yeah, I don't think we're going to get it this week or next week.
Yeah, it might not be at the top of their priority list here. But as I understand it, last year the measure passed the House, but not the Senate. Why do you think things will be different this time around?
Well, it always takes a push, and in the Senate, it only takes one senator to, my understanding, to block something and get more information. So to the extent that someone needs more information, we were down there providing that. We met with over 20 senators and staff members this last week. I think it's a little bit of due diligence on the Senate side. I understand it. And of course, this bill is unique to Washington, D.C. because it is nonpartisan. So of all the municipalities that are involved, there are lots of Republicans, Democrats, Independents. So it's a nonpartisan bill, but I'm sure they're trying to look at cost and efficiencies and let the Postal Service weigh in.
Yeah, a nonpartisan bill is very rare these days, but let me ask you this. While you are joined together right now, what does that take away from Burr Ridge specifically? Like, why are you pushing for the split?
We're not pushing for a split at all. We do all want to be together in this. We have some common efficiencies. For example, I'm also the former chairperson of the 911 emergency ETS board in DuPage County, the largest ETS board in all of Illinois, and we have had issues where there have been emergency calls, and you give the zip code, part of the address, and people go to Willowbrook, or they'll go to another community where they share zip codes. There are a number of other reasons that we need the zip code. There's sales tax, for example. We end up having to talk to our neighbor, our very good neighbor, Willowbrook, about what part is our tax, what part is your tax. It gets a little dicey sometimes. And then, of course, it's the efficiencies of the Amazons of the world now that use zip codes for everything. So there's a common address in both towns. People have difficulty getting their packages. So it's for efficiency, and it should be easy because there are 33 available 605 numbers, which is our area of Illinois. So we're not asking for anything that's likely to be needed in the near future. There's only 65 codes that have been used. So for all this time, so we think it's an easy push. It's just change, and there's always resistance to some change.
Yeah, and when I say split, I just mean your own unique code. Do you all get to ask for a specific code?
Yeah. So, for example, I think they call it the Fox Valley Sectional Center, this postal district area of northeastern Illinois, has the 605 number. And for example, of course, with Willowbrook, we have 605-27, Hinsdale, for example, 605-21. So we need a 605 number. So about 65 numbers have been used, but 33 or more are available. So for example, we would want probably 60528, just one more number.
Okay, 60528. Now, when you have, I'm sure your constituents have weighed in on this. When you've heard from them, what have they said?
Please get us a zip code, Mayor. I've had the privilege of being the mayor, two different tenures. I was the mayor back in 2008 when businesses and residents all asked for their own zip code because of all the confusion sometimes. It just is easier. We were also developing Burr Ridge's downtown at that time, the village center. There was also confusion there because many of the businesses came in, they did their pro formas on what they were going to do. And when we told them our zip code was 60527, they put that into their computers then, and it came up DuPage County because it came up in Willowbrook. And so they did their pro formas based on a DuPage sales tax when in fact Burr Ridge sits 40% of Burr Ridge sits in Cook County and the village center sits in Cook County. So they were significantly off their projections because they used a zip code that did not apply to Cook County.
Interesting. Now,
Yes.
how has business been, or how is business in Burr Ridge?
Well, Burr Ridge has been very fortunate. If you try to find any village other than Burr Ridge, certainly north of I-80, that is debt-free, tell me who that is, because I think we are the only village north of I-80 that is debt-free. We don't
Wow.
have any bonds. Now we're just fortunate these several years. I don't know how long that's going to stay, but since COVID, and we stayed open during COVID, and we had tents up, we didn't lose a restaurant, and we kept all of our businesses. Our sales tax has been very robust, and our revenue, therefore, has been strong. And we've been able to pay off our debts and still maintain all the great services for the well-deserving residents of Burr Ridge.
Very interesting. Okay, so in terms of a timeline, how long would it take for this to actually take effect if Congress approves it and you move forward?
We think, and we've asked the Postal Service, what is it that you need? Do you need to update the software? Can we just get into your computers? Not we, of course, but is this a matter of people getting into the computers and updating the zip codes? And is there a cost involved with that? We have 80 communities. We're more than willing to look at the cost and get involved. So we think it's a very quick fix. And that if it was, for example, if it was passed by the end of 25 or the beginning of 26, we would hope to have the zip code up and running well into 2026.
Now, have you had some pushback from people? I can think of times when like a street name was going to change or something like that. And people really had issue with the fact that, okay, now I have to have my license changed. I have to have all my documents changed. So that would kind of apply if the zip code changes too, right?
Yes, it would, but today almost everything is computerized. So you just put everything in and you do change the zip code over to your zip code. There aren't too many people that even use the Postal Service for, its first intended purpose, which was mail. It's my understanding the Postal Service delivers less than half the mail they delivered 10 years ago at a lot more cost. And so, but to answer your question, we've asked people, we don't think it's a big inconvenience to them at all. And no one seems to have come up to us and said, gee, I don't want to take the effort. And certainly the businesses are more than willing to do it because it's advantageous for the businesses. So not a problem as far as we're concerned.
All right, Mayor Grasso, we appreciate you taking time to talk with us here on Chicago Live. Thank you so much, and please keep us updated.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me and getting this issue out before the public.
Absolutely. What was the last thing you wanted to say?
I appreciate the time very much.
Oh, absolutely. And I look forward to hearing when you become 60528.
You're one of the first people I call.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hold you to that. 2:22 right now. We'll take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. 2:25 right now, and we want to take you to Wall Street. Let's look at the big board and see how the Dow is today. And you can see here, we're sitting quite nice. Have been all day, up 369, almost 370 points here. I'm seeing that this rise is about the expectation again of the government shutdown possibly ending sometime soon. That it's extended some gains from the previous session with some expectation there of that investors are keeping their eyes on Washington as the federal government could reopen as soon as the end of this week, quite possibly here. They're also preparing for what comes next after it, 43 days in, what happens after it. So sitting in pretty good condition right now, again, seeing all green on the screen. We've kind of been all over the place during this government shutdown as there's been a lot of uncertainty that's really had the markets being mixed, going up and down, but nice to see some green on the screen. Before we go to another break here, I do want to just update you on a developing situation that we're watching in our newsroom. We tried to go to Kasey Chronis in our 1 o'clock hour, and she was running up to get into the courthouse for this case on the Broadview 6. That's 6 people who were indicted for interfering or impeding with federal agents out at Broadview, the ICE processing center there. She's been sending us updates now from the courtroom, and I just want to let you know they are before Judge Heather McShane. She says that court is in session here. She says the courtroom is packed with supporters of the Broadview 6. So is the overflow room. In fact, she says there's at least 75 people in the overflow room who are not members of the press. And according to the judge's calendar, she says that all the parties will be arraigned and have their initial appearance in court today. So getting the latest update from her here, she says that all 6 have waived their formal reading and they have all pled not guilty. Going back to their charges here, as soon as they were indicted, there were about 130 public officials that came out and condemned the indictment. Of course, the Trump administration would say that what's been taking place outside of the Broadview ICE facility in terms of people who have protested and tried to keep vehicles from going in and out of that facility, that it went above and beyond just free speech rights. But those who have been supporting these Broadview 6 here, what's been known as the Broadview 6, they say that their participation was peaceful outside of the ICE processing facility there in Broadview. They had a rally today at the Alexander Calder statue in the Federal Plaza to show some solidarity for these 6 people. That includes someone who is running for Congress and also a committee person that was out there that was indicted here. And they say this moment is bigger than one courtroom and they will not be scared into silence here, and that the attack on these 6 people who struggle to organize and fight to make Chicago a better place will not be tolerated. So again, the Broadview 6 in court right now. We have Kasey Chronis, who is in the courtroom with them, and just as soon as we get more information in terms of where they're going forward, we will let you know. But that's a developing situation here at home that we're watching. We've also been watching what's been happening with flight chaos, anxiety that's been rising for days as there have been cuts to flight traffic, 4% on Friday that went to 6% and will soon get to 10% and possibly beyond. When we come back from this break, we're going to check in with Chelsea Torres, our multimedia reporter, about flight delays and cancellations in Atlanta. We'll be right back. 2:32 right now, and right around this time yesterday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy was here in Chicago, and he was at O'Hare warning about the possibility of flight anxiety, travel anxiety, getting worse as we get close to Thanksgiving as a result of the government shutdown, and really trying to urge Congress that's now come back together to vote to end this government shutdown. It appears now that he's kind of been moving around to different airports, and we have our multimedia reporter Chelsea Torres at Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport to give us an update on how things are shaping up there. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join us.
Anita, it's great to be here with you. You know, as of right now, we're well over 1,200 delays across the country. We might be hitting that 1,000 mark at cancellations. Last I checked, it was at the 900 mark. But again, every time we check this, since these flight reductions began last Friday, that number has been rising every single hour. And it's just amazing to see how many delays and cancellations are happening. You know, I'll tell you though, after talking to a few people today, they had just gotten back from their flights and said they personally had not had any issues, but they've met so many people, friends, family, who have been dealing with the same problems of whether you're having to fly around before you can actually land at an airport, or you have constant delays. So what a lot of people are telling me is that they're just hoping that the government does reopen, which is something I think a lot of people are hoping and expecting here in the next few hours, or at least by the end of today. But Anita, even if the government does reopen today, tomorrow, whenever, we're still going to be seeing problems at the airports for the foreseeable future. But as for a specific timeline of how long is that going to happen, that's something even Secretary Duffy does not know yet.
Yeah, has he visited Hartsfield Jackson today?
He has not. He has not visited here, and actually I have not seen anything from what he said today at all. So I'm kind of just hoping to see, maybe he'll come out and visit another airport. Maybe he'll say something new of what we're hearing, what we're seeing. I think the one thing that really stood out to me when he was talking there at O'Hare yesterday is just that he's now seeing a lot more air traffic controllers get back to work and come to work. Mind you, 43 days of not getting paid, you can't really blame them for finding side jobs just so they can put food on the table, right? So to me, that actually says a lot, that a lot of these air traffic controllers are getting back to work, despite the fact that we're still in the shutdown. He said that a lot of these air traffic controllers are optimistic, but I think, you know, even he did not have an exact answer for what would happen if the government does reopen and what Thanksgiving looks like. Another thing, Anita, and I'll say this before I send it back to you, is that I thought it was awesome that he could say that a lot of these air traffic controllers would start getting paid within, I believe it was 2 to 3 days after the government reopens. So that's something that's at least very optimistic for a lot of these guys that are working without a paycheck.
Yeah, I was seeing that the last time the government shut down, which was 35 days, and we're at 43 now, that it took like 2 months. And so just the fact that it could be a week, even though you don't want any lapse in your paychecks, but the fact that it could be a week is a remarkable turnaround. Talk about the fact that this really is a ripple effect from what was going on that the air traffic controllers have been warning about for quite some time before the shutdown.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing so much about the air traffic controllers and how a lot of them are not showing up because they're not getting paid. But Secretary Duffy was saying this has been a big problem well before the shutdown, and that's just because it's one of those industries where he's not seeing as many people come in. And the people that you do have staying on, well, he said at the time he was only seeing maybe about 5 people retire a day. The shutdown exacerbated that to the point where he was seeing up to 15 to 20 of them retire a day. So now that's the big problem. He said there's about 2,000 air traffic controllers short across the country right now. And if you think about it, I mean, yes, we have some that are getting back to work, and hopefully a lot of these towers that you see behind me will be fully staffed within days of the government opening. But then you have to know, fully staffed just to where it was by the time the shutdown started, not fully staffed to where they all want to be. So again, it's going to take some time, and I think this holiday season where we see the traffic, air traffic really ramp up, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and another moment that I think gave great pause was when he talked about some of the airlines themselves that may just decide they can't fly during this time.
Yeah, you know, he's the only person I've seen that. I will tell you this. He did mention yesterday at O'Hare that that's kind of his concern, is that there would be a ground stop for certain airlines if the disruption gets so bad. And of course, his big question was, what does that mean for Thanksgiving? He didn't have a definite answer for that. I will tell you, though, Anita, that the trade group Airlines for America that represents all airlines, they were saying that as of, and they just said this hours ago, they have not seen any Thanksgiving flight cancellations. And so what does that mean for people that do have those Thanksgiving flights? Maybe just hold off a little bit, hang tight, hope that the government reopens. But they did not kind of echo back any of those same concerns that Duffy has. So it's something that we'll just have to kind of wait and see. And I think all of the airlines are just trying to take it day by day at this point.
Absolutely. And are there some airports that are getting hit harder than others?
Definitely Newark. I've seen Newark, LaGuardia, unfortunately O'Hare, and even here at Atlanta, just the delays and cancellations, those numbers are kind of the most out of a lot of the other airports. But you're seeing it across the board, right? It's 40 of the nation's largest airports, busiest airports, that they're seeing these biggest impacts. But from what I've seen the past few days, even through the weekend, those are the top airports that I'm seeing that are kind of having this biggest impact.
Well, Chelsea, thank you so much again for your time. And I'll tell you what, hats off to you for the concentration. It's a good thing to hear the airplanes taking off, but I know that takes a lot to stick to your words, too.
Thanks, Anita. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day. It's 2:38 right now. Let's take a quick break. .240 right now, one of our favorite times here on Chicago Live when Chief Meteorologist Emily Walsh joins us for a look at what's happening outside. And it's bright and beautiful today.
It's a beautiful day. Temperatures are overperforming. Always love to say that, right? So the sunshine's really helping to warm things up. We have temperatures right now for a lot of us that are sitting well into the 50s. For Northwest Indiana, running a little bit cooler just because of that snowpack. But the snowpack is decreasing.
All right.
Yes. So we're going to continue to melt that away throughout the rest of this work week. And we have really, really nice temperatures ahead of us. For those of you thinking back to Sunday or Monday, or maybe you want to forget it, snow's not your thing yet, I think you're going to love the forecast here because we're warming things up each and every day. And by this weekend, Anita, there are some models trying to take us near 70 degrees on Saturday. So it's going to be gorgeous out there. And
Chicago can swing that pendulum.
Isn't it crazy how much of an extreme we can have just within a few days? Yeah, sky. It's pretty wild here. But again, some locations Sunday night into Monday, as we know, picked up over a foot of snow. So we're still dealing with some of that melting taking place. And I will say, I was walking around the Chicago area today, and most of the sidewalks were clear and looking good. But any sidewalks that don't get sunshine, they're still icy out there, even with the warmer temperatures, because it got so packed down from everybody walking right over it. So just be mindful of that. And, you know, it's still good to wear those boots or something with good traction out there, because they'll have those surprise spots. All right, 7-day forecast for you tomorrow. Sunny skies. We're going to have temperatures right around 56. And then on Friday, we're going to be right around 58 degrees and probably a couple spots tagging 60. Now, Saturday, we are expected to see increasing cloud cover, but we've pulled the rain chances from this weekend. So if you have outdoor plans, I would make them if you don't, because it's going to be stunning. We're going to be at 66 degrees on Saturday. Sunday, sunny skies, 52. Now, Monday and Tuesday, there's been some slight signals saying that we could have a couple stray or isolated showers, but most areas likely end up staying dry. It's just going to be cooler. So Monday and Tuesday of next week, we're expected to be in the mid to upper 40s, which, by the way, is very seasonable. By next week, our average highs do drop into the 40s.
People keep saying like, oh, it came so early, but actually...
It really didn't. So the average first trace of snowfall is typically right around Halloween. And the first measurable snowfall, meaning about 1/10 of an inch or more, is typically right around November 17th. So we were a little ahead of schedule, but only by about a week. You know, so you can't really be too surprised by it.
Was the foot of snow?
Yes.
Okay, that was an anomaly.
That's the rare part. But again, you know, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, how warm the lake waters still are. It makes a huge difference this time of the year and then also in the spring. So when you have those open waters and you have those really cold air masses moving overhead, if that water is much warmer than the air that you have moving in, you're going to generate clouds. Now, depending on the difference between that air temp and the water temp, that tells you if you have enough energy to create precipitation, and then of course, depending on how cold it is that precipitation going to be rain or snow? But the next month or so is really going to be the time frame where we could be seeing the best chance for lake effect.
Oh, lake effect.
Yes. We love it here, though. We have to.
Yeah,
it's just part of living near the Great Lakes, right?
Okay, so there's Great Lakes, and then there's Northern Lights. And I hear you are quite a fan.
Of course. You know, unfortunately, though, I've never seen them in person.
Right? Neither have I. It's always people's pictures.
Yes, I've seen it through pictures. I've been here in the studio, and I haven't been able to see it. But yes, and it looks like we could have a shot, Anita, at seeing them again tonight.
All right, so if you missed them last night, we're bringing in Michelle Nichols from the Adler Planetarium right after this break, so we can talk a little bit more about our second chance that we'll hopefully be able to take advantage of. 2:47, and Emily is staying around so that we can talk with our friends at the Adler Planetarium about this magnificent sight we have had in the skies, at least for one day, and hoping for a second appearance tonight. Michelle Nichols is standing by. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You're not going to like what I have to say, but go ahead.
Well, that was great talking to you. We will bring you back. No, I'm playing. Okay, what's the update here? Because we got so many pictures and videos.
So many pictures. And one thing that I wanted to ask was, is this happening more often? Because I feel like this is something that we haven't been talking a lot about in years past, or at least the frequency seems like it's happening more. So is it happening more often?
So the peak of solar activity was last year, early this year. We're on the downswing of that. The last peak of solar activity about a decade ago was a little bit less. So yes, in that sense, we're getting a little bit more solar activity at our peak, which is good. Is it overall happening a lot more than before? No, but we definitely have a lot more ways to find out about it. We have tools in our pockets to be able to record it. We've got push notifications and all sorts of folks and numbers being crunched and satellites and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely a lot more attention being paid to it, but overall, I'd say not really as significantly more.
Yeah, more attention being paid. And in fact, meteorologist Mike Kaplan this morning said this will go down as one of the most widely photographed Northern Lights episodes on record, which is just kind of a sign of the times. But we need to know, if we missed out once, do we have another shot at getting our cameras out tonight?
So what has happened in about the last hour is the next cloud of material from the sun has arrived. And it has arrived earlier than last night's did. So last night was just the right time that all the effects were happening after it was dark here. And so it was in the early evening. People weren't asleep in the middle of the night. So this one's earlier. The main problem though is this one doesn't seem to be packing as much of a wallop as last night's did. So the current estimates are downgrading the possibility of seeing an aurora tonight. It could still happen, but surely not down to El Salvador like it was last night, which is insane to think about. So that could still happen, but I'm not holding out as much hope as last night.
Quite literally, if you snooze, you lose type of thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully we have that chance tonight. But I was kind of hoping, this is a pretty complex process that takes place for us to be able to see this magical experience in the sky. Can you explain to our viewers what exactly is taking place to create all of these colors in our skies? Sure.
So we've got material from the sun that's being released. That's called a coronal mass ejection. So think of it like a blast of protons and electrons. If that bubble of stuff happens to be pointing in our direction, it'll come our way. A couple days later, it'll impact Earth's magnetic field. If there's a good connection between that cloud of stuff and Earth's magnetic field, material, those protons, electrons, can start streaming toward our poles. And when those protons, electrons hit the gases in our atmosphere, they cause them to glow. And so you can get the red and the green colors depending on which gas it is and what color it's creating. So if there's a particularly strong wallop of this stuff that comes at us, that means that activity then can be seen not just in northern Canada and Alaska, but it starts to spread farther south. And so those are the more rare events that they don't happen as often. So we don't get to see the aurora as often as folks farther north do.
Yeah. I'm seeing that the solar storms delayed the launch of Blue Origin's big new rocket with Mars orbiters for NASA.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because you can have communication disruptions due to these solar storms and the solar activity. You can have GPS disruptions. You can have electrical currents being induced in not only electrical transmission wires, but inside spacecraft themselves. So I'm almost certain they didn't want to launch these things up into this cloud of protons and electrons. And they're like, you know what? We can wait. Let's wait a little bit to have all that go by. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Makes sense. It can really disrupt a lot.
It can. Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay, so how long do we have to wait for another event like this?
Don't know. So we don't know of any significant coronal mass ejections heading our way currently. But the sunspots, that the area of the sun that caused this, it's still kind of facing in our direction, a little bit less at this point, but sun keeps rotating. But keep an eye on things. This could happen in the future, if not in the next few days, maybe the next few weeks, the next few months, maybe in the next year or two. So we'll keep an eye on it.
That's kind of the exciting part of it too, is like we're always we're just like surprised by it every time, right? We know that one of those big CME events are happening, and then we know that there's a chance, right? So like it gives you some hope for the next couple of days. But it's a nice little surprise in your week when this stuff happens.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, the amount of pictures that we get just really add to everything. So Michelle, all right, if people missed it, I know you all have some educational things on your end to teach people about what to expect the next time it comes around.
Yep, you can come down to the Adler. We're open for Illinois residents. It's free general admission every Wednesday evening. So starting tonight, 4 to 10 p.m. We're open for free general admission to Illinois residents, and our observatory is open, weather permitting, clouds permitting, tonight starting at 7. So come on down and enjoy the sky, even if there isn't an aurora in it. But also we have our Sky Observers Hangout, which is our online live YouTube program that we generally do a few times a year. So we've done programs on the sun and effects of the sun. So go on our YouTube channel. You can find those, learn a lot more, and go on our Scopes with the Adler Facebook group. Send us some questions. We love answering those. So we have a variety of ways for you to connect with the Adler.
Yeah, and you mentioned just taking a look at what's happening in the sky, or learn about what's happening in the sky. Are there some other things that may be happening soon that, maybe not Northern Lights, but something else that's just kind of cool?
Oh, you got to admit, nobody gets tired of looking at Saturn through the telescope. So as long as it's clear tonight, that's what they're going to be looking at, is the planet Saturn through the big scope. So thumbs up to that. There also is a total lunar eclipse in March of next year. So early March. And it's March 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So early morning, March 3rd, get ready. The moon's going to turn a reddish color. So that's always a lot of fun as well.
That's another exciting one too, the lunar eclipse to look forward to. We have a few months, but something to mark the calendars for. Yeah.
And then hope that the weather doesn't interrupt.
I know, right? That's always the wild card, but I'll do my best to make it clear.
Come on with it. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. We always appreciate having you. Everything except the bad news that we couldn't see it again tonight.
Well, stay tuned. We'll keep an eye on it. If anything happens, we'll try to get the word out quickly like we did last night as well. So fingers crossed.
All right. We'll hope for some breaking news. All right. Take care. It's 2:55, everyone. We'll take a quick break. Thank you so much for staying around. 2:58 right now, and as we prepare for the 3 o'clock hour, I want to take you to Washington, D.C. for just a preview of what we're getting ready for here. Any minute now will be the swearing-in ceremony for Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva. Speaker Johnson is going to be swearing her in. There's a lot to this story of this representative from Arizona, this Democratic representative from Arizona, who will be sworn in today, more than 7 weeks after winning a special election in Arizona to fill a seat that was last held by her father. Again, they are getting ready for that swearing in any minute here. But it's been a weeks-long delay. In part, it was intended to prevent her signature on a petition to eventually trigger a vote to release files related to Jeffrey Epstein. There was a lot of back and forth as to when she would be actually sworn in. So it's expected to happen right at the top of our 3 o'clock hour here. Again, House Speaker Mike Johnson should be the one to swear her in. He had previously declined to seat her until the chamber reconvened, again, after the government shutdown, but going ahead with it now. And of course, it is coming on a day when there was a leak of files, emails concerning the Jeffrey Epstein case. So there's much to this particular situation here that we'll be watching in on again on this first day of House members coming back to Washington, D.C. with a big vote ahead of them to possibly reopen the government, but Democrats saying that they are still dug in, at least in the House, to make sure that these subsidies for health care are worked on before any government can reopen. They want to make sure that that's taken care of before people's premiums expire and can raise quite a bit come the beginning of the new year in January. So again, we're waiting on that swearing-in ceremony. Just as soon as it begins, we will take you to it live, but it is 3 o'clock right now. Let's take a quick break before we begin this hour. 3:02 right now, and as we begin this 3 o'clock hour, there are several things that we are watching right now. We are awaiting the swearing-in ceremony for Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva, who should be sworn in by Speaker Johnson any moment here. That was scheduled to begin right at 3 o'clock, and again, as soon as that begins, we will take you there. I mentioned before we went to break, there's a lot of things connected to her particular situation in terms of the 7 weeks that she's been waiting to be sworn in. A part of that has to do with the Jeffrey Epstein files and the push for more information to come out as it pertains to whatever possible links Jeffrey Epstein may have to other politicians and high-profile celebrities, to include the president. And of course, the president has said there is no connection, that he threw him out essentially of Mar-a-Lago quite some many years ago. But just today, there was a set of emails that was released. And so we're going to be speaking with Congressman Mike Quigley. Hopefully that'll happen around 3:15, that we'll be speaking to him. It kind of depends on when this press conference or when the swearing-in ceremony begins. But we anticipate speaking with Congressman Mike Quigley about those emails that were released. These were Jeffrey Epstein's own emails, where he allegedly in the emails talks about President Trump knowing about girls that he was in communication with. Again, the president has repeatedly said he had no knowledge of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, but just kind of felt like he was, in his words, kind of a creep, and that he made sure that he was no longer around Mar-a-Lago. But he also said that there were several people that worked at Mar-a-Lago that Jeffrey Epstein essentially was like stealing from him, he says. So again, there's a lot connected to this swearing-in ceremony. We're going to look at that. We're going to take you there live just as soon as it begins. We're also going to talk with Congressman Mike Quigley about the emails that were released today, because that was another big bombshell that happened today. We're also waiting right around 3:30. We're going to have a conversation with Aurora Mayor John Lash, and this is about immigration enforcement. It's been such a big topic throughout the country, but particularly here in the Chicago area, Chicagoland, over the last 3 months or so, with the onslaught of Operation Midway Blitz. So if you recall, back in September going into October, Mayor Johnson here in the city of Chicago came out and did an acknowledgement of ice-free zones, what he called ice-free zones. And in his order, he talked about places like schools or places of business, private businesses and things of that nature, where they wanted to prevent ICE from being able to mobilize to have their operation going in our area. Well, Aurora is looking at doing something similar here. So Aurora has called for a special meeting that should be happening today. They're anticipating that to happen at 4 p.m. But ahead of it, we're looking at speaking with Aurora Mayor John Lash about their discussion over this potential vote on a city ordinance that would prohibit the use of city property for civil immigration enforcement activities. They have had quite a few things, quite a few raids that have happened in the Aurora area as well. So we'll follow up with him on this new development for the city of Aurora. And we're also going to speak with Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Moser. We had her just a few days ago speaking about one of the cases that she was working on, but this in particular is about legislation that she has championed that would fundamentally change the way law enforcement goes about working with juveniles in terms of arrests, that they would not be required, no longer be required to arrest juveniles accused of domestic violence. So several things that we have coming up for you. Again, it all begins with that swearing-in ceremony for Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva. That should be happening any moment, and as soon as it does, we will take you there live. But let's take another quick break first. 3:10 right now, and as I mentioned, we had Congressman Mike Quigley who was standing by to talk to us about what was really a bombshell this morning in terms of emails connected to Jeffrey Epstein, where he mentions President Donald Trump multiple times. And as soon as we can get him on the line, we're going to go to him. But first, let's go to a live shot that we have outside of the Dirksen Federal Courthouse for breaking news. This on the Broadview 6.
Yeah, I just want to clear, just hold on one second.
I'm happy to read it. So
You want to read it?
yeah, I can read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. For the sake of you guys, we're gonna read the statement here, and she's gonna read it across the street because it's a statement for the public. Everybody knows that Kat's running for Congress, and she wants to address probably a lot of constituents that are out there, a lot of other people in the public, but she also wants to hear that the people who couldn't come down today are able to hear the message that she wants to send about the indictment and about the criminal charges as well. But I'm happy to answer any kind of questions that folks may have about this process, about this misguided and baseless indictment, about these charges that we feel full-heartedly are meant to criminalize protest, are meant to demonize those who dissent, and Kat and the others charged with her in this fake conspiracy are bearing the brunt of this administration's cruel tactics of retaliation against those who dare to speak up and about right now in this city about the most important issue and the most important topics. So I'm happy to field any kind of questions about those, and then Kat will give a statement. I'm sure you'd rather hear from her than me, but I'm sure. Yeah, sure, thanks. So Josh Herman, Herman, and I'm Kat's lawyer. Okay, so today was Kat's and her co-defendant's initial appearance. An initial appearance is a normal court appearance for somebody coming in, answering an indictment. Conditions of release were issued. She has pled not guilty firmly to both charges. The first charge is a conspiracy for all intents and purposes, to impede an ICE officer by making him drive slowly to work. And the second charge is a misdemeanor assault charge related to standing in front of that vehicle. And when we get down to it, you will see the evidence that completely counters the allegations against Kat, the allegations of her being out there with others, turning protest into a criminal conspiracy, and we will stand firmly against that through trial, through motions, through attacking this indictment. We will take this to trial if we get there. We have some motions that we're thinking about to challenge this theory that the government has offered here, this theory that I may add, and this is why this case is important. This case creates a conspiracy about people standing together spontaneously to protest injustice. Simply by standing together, people who don't even know each other, by being next to each other and having a common First Amendment position in opposition and dissent becomes a conspiracy. If we have to take that to trial, we will gladly take that to trial and we will win. Sure. So there is more that we expect to be shown as opposed to a clip of part of that. Everybody will know that Kat and others were there at Broadview, not just on September 26th, not just on September 19th, but from the earliest possible opportunity to protest the injustice of what was happening at the Broadview facility, which earlier today, I understand, before Judge Gettleman, there are efforts to address the inhumane and cruel conditions that were in there, that Kat and others were protesting. So that video does not tell the entire story. Moreover, the charge is a conspiracy. The crime of a conspiracy is an agreement. And to concoct an agreement from people standing next to each other with signs and protesting is absurd. It poses great and grave risk to anybody who dares to protest. This is a question that I almost want to turn back to you, because the same question is, why do the individuals out of the 50 or so people who were there Why are there elected officials who are on top of this indictment? Why are there people who are running for campaign office? Why are there outspoken advocates against what is happening at Broadview? Why are those individuals? And you'll notice when you look at the indictment, there's a lot of press being given to damage done to this car. You'll notice that none of the individuals who are charged are accused of doing any of that damage, right? They're accused of exercising their First Amendment rights, and the conspiracy that is charged is seeking to tag them with things that other people may or may not have done. This is what I can say in that regard. Mr. Martin works with our office. Other than that, maybe we'll be surprised that there's pictures with Kat and other people standing together in protest and in solidarity against what was happening at Broadview, but that is the very precise danger to creating a conspiracy by simple common cause, and that cause being the injustices that were happening at Broadview. No, so the 19th is just a deadline for the government to provide discovery. The next court date is December 4th. So I'd actually like this opportunity. I can address any other questions, but I think in lieu of everybody taking their cameras across the street, I think that now if Kat can read a statement, and she's not going to be taking questions off of it, but if there's follow-up questions, I'm happy to address. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Ready?
All right. Sorry, y'all. I usually have a podium, so we're just holding the phone. My name is Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, K-A-T-A-B-U-G-H-A-Z-A-L-E-H. My name is Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. Usually after saying that, I mention that I'm running for Congress. But today, that's not what we're talking about. I want to focus on the people of Chicago who have shown tremendous resilience and courage in the face of daily onslaughts by ICE, DHS, and CBP, agencies that have waged a terror campaign in our neighborhoods and on our communities. Families have been dragged out of their homes and zip-tied in the middle of the night by masked men who rappel down from Black Hawk helicopters. Babies have been pepper sprayed through car windows. Families have been tear-gassed in their neighborhood. People just trying to live their lives have been ripped away from their families. And the masked men who have acted with such brazen impunity have taken our neighbors to the Broadview Processing Center, which has been described as so inhumane and hellish that a federal judge has had to step in, and rightly so. It is because I, like so many others, could not stand by in silence watching our community be ripped apart that I went to Broadview to say this isn't right. This is not who we should be. At Broadview, I have been shot with pepper balls, violently thrown to the ground, and assaulted by government agents. But anything that has happened to me is nothing compared to the horror inflicted on the people who have disappeared into that building and the families they have been forced to leave behind. I was there as a congressional candidate, but also a human being. For speaking up for these people and against this administration's cruel policies, I have been federally indicted. I have been charged with conspiracy for protesting with others. But expressing your First Amendment rights is not a conspiracy, and dissent is not a crime. This case is not just about me or the others charged with me. This is about everyone who has been resilient in our neighborhoods as they are invaded by ICE and CBP. Everyone who speaks out despite fear. That resilience will not be broken because we know we have a moral responsibility to exercise our First Amendment rights and speak out against injustice and what is happening to our neighbors. This indictment is about the Trump administration's effort to falsely frame courage and solidarity as a conspiracy. We will not be scared into silence, and we will not stop standing up to this administration. Do you want to live in a country where you can't speak out against injustice without fearing the law? Where your children could be the next one in that courtroom for standing up for what they believe in? I don't, and I hope you don't either. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I know that there's some other defendants that were in that case with their lawyers that may want to speak, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Thompson. It's Thomson. I represent Jocelyn Walsh. Jocelyn Walsh is a musician who went to Broadview to raise her voice, to speak out against injustice. She raised her voice for her neighbors who were being snatched by armed, masked agents. And she faced violence herself for speaking out. She was shot by a projectile, went smashing through her guitar and struck her leg. And she continued to speak out. And in response, she was charged with this crime. And she will be fighting these charges. And she will be continuing to speak out. And we will fight these charges because this case is not just about Jocelyn. It is about the Constitution. This case is about the right to protest. This case is about the right to dissent. And now is as important as ever that we all come together and raise our voices against injustice. And Jocelyn will be across the street with her guitar, will be singing a song at the Federal Plaza across the street for anyone who wants to take video or be present for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chris Parenti, P-A-R-E-N-T-E, the attorney for Brian Straw. So you guys see Mr. Straw here went to Broadview to stand up in a peaceful protest to protect the marginalized in our community. Brian's a father, he's a local politician, he is a respected community leader. His actions were entirely lawful and in accordance with his faith and what he teaches his children, which again is to stand up for the marginalized, which he did today, I think, as you saw in that courtroom. We are fully confident that Brian will be exonerated at trial as soon as we have a jury impaneled, and we're looking forward to that. I'll take 2 questions if we want to ask anything.
Chris, I asked Judge Ford, I'm curious what you think. I mean, some people have pointed to the video of this incident. They said they're right there, they're on video, they did it, you know. So I'm just wondering what the response is to that.
Again, you'll see it at the trial, but we have full confidence that Brian's going to be fully exonerated when a jury of 12 people from this community who have witnessed the unlawful actions of Border Patrol agents, not all of them, but a lot of them, that they will not have any issues with exonerating Brian in this case. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kat Sharp, C-A-T-S-H-A-R-P. I serve as Chief of Staff in the 40th Ward with Alderperson Andre Vasquez. I am a candidate for Cook County Commissioner in the 12th District, and I am a proud, lifelong Chicagoan. I want to be sure people understand why I and many others have protested outside of the Broadview ICE facility. In the last 2 months, ICE has terrorized my neighbors, friends, and loved ones. They have pepper sprayed and tear gassed children, kidnapped a preschool teacher in front of her students, and murdered a father after dropping his children off at school. I personally have had to look through abandoned vehicles in my neighborhood to identify those abducted by ICE, only to find out some are single parents whose young children are now alone. At Broadview, detainees are denied access to attorneys, food, and showers, and are forced to sleep in crowded rooms on concrete floors next to overflowing toilets. We are seeing the Trump administration violate our Constitution and violate our human rights. These criminal charges will not silence us from speaking out against this injustice. Our neighbors, our city, and our country cannot afford our silence. Today and always, we stand together.
Thank you. Any questions? I think Kat's not going to take any questions at this time, but a well-put question. It is definitely the plan to take this to trial.
I asked others about the video of this incident. Do you want to speak at all to what actually happened on the video?
I don't think we're going to be talking about any of the facts right now. I think people can see for themselves, the ludicrousness of this indictment. And we firmly believe that a jury of Kat's peers is going to see this indictment for exactly what it is. Any other questions?
What's the significance of the butterfly plants? I'm curious.
It's very important to lift up migration and to center the immigrant communities that are the focus of Trump's attack right now. And so I know it is a core principle of Kat's and her husband Gabe, who stands with her today, to always keep the people who are most targeted by Trump's attacks at their heart and at the center of these issues, because fundamentally that is what this is about. If no one was speaking, if no one was protesting, this case would not be here. We are here, and these charges have been brought as a result of trying to hide the fascist and authoritarian attacks on migrant communities in Chicago. And the city of Chicago, Ms. Sharp, and everyone in this matter, and everyone in the streets will not be silenced. And I am attorney Molly Armour. My last name is spelled A-R-M-O-U-R. Thank you.
Okay, we were listening in there to several of the attorneys and a few of the members of what's now known as the Broadview Six. These are 6 people, many of them who are local lawmakers or those aspiring to be, who were indicted for conspiracy and impeding for their protests outside of the Broadview ICE facility. This was their initial court appearance today, where they talked about conditions of their release. They all pleaded not guilty to the charges that were before them, but they said that this is about criminalizing protest, demonizing those who dissent. They called it a fake conspiracy, said that there were cruel tactics that were being used against those who dare to speak up, and the fact that they believe that what was caught on video, the video that's been used by the Department of Homeland Security to say, hey, this is why these people were taken in and indicted, that they say it doesn't tell the whole story, but they intend to take this to trial. They have been out there on multiple occasions protesting what they believe is injustice that's been happening there at the Broadview ICE facility, especially as a part of Operation Midway Blitz. And they said, why are all elected officials in this indictment instead of others who were out there? I mean, if you have 6 people, but there were 50 out there, why were these 6 people chosen? So one of the people who spoke there was Kat Abu Ghazala. She is running for Congress in the 9th District. She says that she was shot with pepper balls, thrown to the ground, assaulted by agents out there at the Broadview ICE facility, and she says she will not continue to stand for what's been happening, but will be standing up to what she believes are injustices that have been happening there. Another one of the attorneys that was out there says that this is about the Constitution fundamentally, and that they're raising their voices. His client had been shot at as they were playing a guitar out in front of that facility, and they were actually going across the street from the Dirksen Federal Courthouse, where they were going to use that guitar to raise their voices yet again for another press conference that'll be taking place shortly. Another person who spoke, Oak Park trustee Brian Shaw, and his attorney who was speaking on his behalf. He's another one of the Broadview Six, and they said that they went there to stand up in peaceful protest, but they also question again why local politicians have been brought in. Kat Sharp, chief of staff for Andre Vasquez and a candidate for Cook County Commissioner in the 12th District, mentioned the preschool teacher. She talked about different instances where she felt injustice had taken place, and one of those was the preschool teacher who was taken in at the Rialta del Sol just a couple of weeks ago. And in that case, there was actually movement in that case today. So all of these court cases are kind of interconnected in their own way. for the daycare center provider. A court granted a habeas petition on Diana Santillano Gaiano today, and she, of course, was detained by immigration officers at that Northside daycare. So this was just granted earlier today, and they say that she will remain in ICE custody in Clark County, Indiana, until a bond hearing before an immigration judge, but they anticipate that taking place sometime later this week. And again, all of this connected to that Broadview ICE facility, these protests in large part because of what they deem are inhumane conditions that have been taking place inside of that Broadview ICE facility. Well, tomorrow, a federal judge, as a result of these court cases that have been coming through, a federal judge is set to tour that Broadview ICE processing facility. It may be the first time we actually get an official who gives us details of what is inside that facility, what it looks like, what's happening in there. So we anticipate full coverage tomorrow on that judge now going in to look at that ICE processing center. Over the last 2 to 3 months, there have been several officials, congressmen and women, alderpersons who have tried to get into that facility, and they have all been denied. But this federal judge now will be going in to tour that Broadview ICE processing center. So again, this was the Broadview 6 that were in court today, many of them coming out after that initial appearance where they all pled non-guilty to conspiracy and impeding, and they said that they didn't do any of what they've been accused of, and pleading not guilty. They are expected to be back in court on December 4th for another court date in that particular case. But again, there are several cases all connected to the judge who will be looking inside of that Broadview ICE facility tomorrow. So much that we are working to cover. Our reporters going in several different directions. Stay with us as we continue to keep you updated on it all. We're going to regroup, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back. 3:35 right now, and before we went to break, we were updating you on the case of the Broadview 6, and really, I meant to stress that that was just one aspect of Operation Midway Blitz that's found itself in court, but there are so many different aspects of it that we have been covering. I want to go to another one that takes us outside of Chicago proper and takes us on to Aurora, where Aurora Mayor John Lash is now going to be joining me to talk talk about some meeting today that's getting ready to be held this evening, where they'll be talking about potentially voting on a city ordinance that would prohibit the use of city property for civil immigration enforcement activities that we have seen throughout Chicago land. Mayor Lash, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Anita, for having me on.
I would like to get your, I know you've kind of been standing by here for a few moments. I'd like to get your take on the Broadview 6 and their indictment and pleading not guilty today.
Well, that's good news and expected. And what we're seeing is, as ICE and federal agents continue to violate people's constitutional rights, I'm no legal expert, nor have I been following what's been going on with the Broadview 6, but we do know that people's constitutional rights here in the city of Aurora are being violated. We've had at least 5 U.S. citizens being arrested. ICE is no longer using warrants, and they seem to be racial profiling and just grabbing people off the streets, whether they're citizens or not citizens, and then taking them to said detention centers for processing. So what we need to do is we need to have some way to enforce and uphold the Constitution of the United States. And it appears that the legal system is about the only system left that could protect people's rights.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that there aren't warrants in many of these cases. And in fact, a U.S. District Court judge for Northern District of Illinois, Judge Cummings, ordered the release of hundreds of individuals detained by ICE and CBP in and around Chicago no later than noon on Friday. And it looks like that is because there have been so many people who have been detained or arrested without warrants. So how walk me through how you all came up with this idea for essentially ICE-free zones like what we have seen here in the city of Chicago.
Sure. So the city of Aurora isn't doing anything that hasn't been tried in other places. Our ordinance most closely mimics Carpentersville, which is nearby. Of course, we watched the city of Chicago pass their ordinance. We have yet to check and see the effectiveness of those ordinances. The one difference that our ordinance has is we use the Illinois Accountability Commission. So what we plan on doing is, if there's a violation of this ordinance or a violation of the Judge Ellis TRO, to go out and document those instances or interactions with ICE or federal immigration authorities, document it, and then turn that information over to the Illinois Accountability Commission so that whatever happened or any potential violation of the TRO, of this ordinance, or a violation of people's constitutional rights is documented and can be used in a court of law later.
Yeah, so adding in that accountability aspect, because, one of the things that I did want to address with you is the fact that members of the Trump administration, Commander Gregory Bavino, has said this means nothing to them.
Well, that's the Trump administration thinking that they are above the law and that the rules of the Constitution of the United States of America do not apply to them. So the last line of defense, of course, is our legal system and judicial system.
So going back to these court cases, do you feel like this would fundamentally change anything that people are experiencing in the city of Aurora by doing this?
Well, we have yet to see. First, we have to pass the ordinance. We're working with a nonprofit that is funded through a state grant to assist us in some of our immigration issues, as well as be sort of a point person that can help iron out differences when the community is reporting law enforcement presence. They don't know if it's APD, they don't know if it's ICE, they don't know if it's federal marshals, to try and first just find out when and if it is ICE, so there's a lot of false alerts, and then 2, work to document what's happening on that site. But as far as the legal system catching up, as you may know, this is probably going to take time and years. I think on the East Coast, there was a lawsuit yesterday, $112 million lawsuit, where a county was holding ICE detainees illegally, and the courts found that and awarded the plaintiffs $112 million to be paid by that county. So that was a 2017 case. It's now 2025. It's 8 years. That's how long it took for those people to get justice. We don't know how long it'll take here. And we don't know if the federal government, because these ordinances are starting to pass in suburbs in Chicago, if they're going to change their operations anyway, if they're going to go back to using warrants and only targeting people with criminal records. We just know that they're not doing it right now.
Yeah, and I remember Judge Sarah Ellis, who was taking up the case with protesters and journalists. She raised that issue of the clear and very dedicated signage on officers as to these agents, as to what agency they work for, and the need for that to be placed on multiple parts of their uniforms. Obviously, they're putting on a lot of different equipment to make sure that people could see that. Tell me about how Operation Midway Blitz has affected the city of Aurora.
It's had a huge impact. We've had 2 ICE detentions, one at Simmons Middle School most recently, and then another one at Allen Middle School where they arrested 2 U.S. citizens.
Attorneys with the National Immigrant Justice Center and ACLU celebrate the judge's ruling today that more than a dozen detainees be released from custody, with hundreds of more let out onto home confinement.
This was a victory because Daniel McQueenie, he operated in systematic acts of police torture.
Today is a day, we are celebrating, but it's not over. Finally, his mom and his daughter and family, we are all here to support, and we're his voice.
We're just very grateful, very, very grateful that we're getting that next step in. Amen. I've been waiting 30 years.
Yeah, to make sure you don't cut that off. We run that for the show. She wasn't done. Okay. Okay. Hey.
The chairman of the JFK Library Foundation, who does so much for this.
Being abused by somebody in the family, and this child jumps in the way, and violence happens as a result of it. We know that it happens because of family chaos. Something's going in the home, like abuse, or maybe even addiction issues, maybe single family home, a whole variety of things. And then we know in the rare circumstances, it's when a kid starts escalating and starts showing that power and control. Well, in the first three situations, getting them services, getting them help, getting the entire family help is actually the more appropriate treatment to keep a kid out of the system versus arresting them and traumatizing them through our system. In the last situation, even with the child's escalating behavior, intervention is still so much better than an arrest and putting them through our juvenile court system. And so that's the point of what we're trying to do, is to make sure that officers who don't want to make that arrest because they see the situation for what it is, can instead refer them to services instead of our court system.
Yeah, that intervention can really make the difference. Do speak to how often police officers may have to go back to the same home, and the difference that an arrest of a young person can make in their life moving forward.
Yes. So oftentimes in situations where we see that family chaos portion or that there's abuse in the home, officers may be going there repeatedly because we're not getting to the root of the issue. Getting them into treatment or to services right away has statistically shown to be more beneficial for the entire family than an arrest. An arrest is traumatizing. This is traumatizing for a juvenile just as much as it would be for an adult, but obviously even more so for a kid. You have handcuffs on them, you bring them down to the police station, they're eventually transported to a juvenile detention center, and most times, because it's a domestic battery causing bodily harm, keeping in mind that bodily harm could be pain or a bruise. It doesn't mean that it's anything more significant than that. The kid's being held. And now the kid could be held for a long amount of time before they even get to a detention hearing in front of a judge, just the way that the juvenile detention laws are set up. And so the trauma that a kid suffers having to go through that arrest could mentally affect them for the rest of their lives, and have been seen to cause mental health issues in juveniles who have then been transported from detention centers even to mental health facilities to deal with what's happening.
Yeah, and when I listen to you and I can think of so many positives that could come from this, I could also, in fairness, see where whenever you say allowing law enforcement to use discretion could also look differently as well.
It could. And so that's part of the reason why within the law, we have the officers use a tool that's called the Adolescent Domestic Battery Typology Tool. And we've actually crafted a 2-page document for them to use through their investigation so that they can utilize this tool to determine which category the child falls under. And if they believe that the child falls under the first 3 categories, then they're more likely to defer them or refer them to services. And so we're hoping that having used a typology tool that has been readily accepted in the psychological field and has now been adapted for police officers, that we'll see a little bit more consistency with police officers being able to make that determination with the discretion and now with this tool.
Yeah. Does it relieve some of the burden on the court system as well?
Very much so, in two ways. The first way is we're going to see a lot less kids going through the system for misdemeanor offenses of domestic violence. And so keep in mind, misdemeanor means it's the lowest of our offenses. If it's a felony offense, the police officers will still be more likely to arrest, but we're going to see a lot less going through the system. And then when you get them to treatment or services as quickly as possible, you're less likely to see them continue down this path. The other way is we're going to see a lot less potential lawsuits against police officers, because police officers now have the ability to use their discretion in these cases as opposed to be mandated into doing something. So I think we're going to see both of the effects in our legal system as a result.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge step. Are you alone in our state, or does this follow kind of the precedent of several other state's attorneys in our state that have used something similar to make change in their regions?
I received overwhelming support from the other 101 states' attorneys because we discussed legislation, including what we individually want to pass, as well as what we see happening from our legislature. And they all see this as an important tool for police officers to be able to use, as well as prosecutors to be able to get people out of the system. I do know for the most part throughout the state of Illinois, prosecutors and police have both been trying to do better with the understanding that we have of the psychology of juveniles, because juveniles don't think the way that adults do. And even when a juvenile becomes 18, it's not necessarily like suddenly something shifts and they're able to think logically as we would with years of experience. So I think that this shift is going in line with what other prosecutors and police departments have wanted to see for a long time.
So it takes effect today or tomorrow?
Yes. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Moser. We always love having you here on the show. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for what you're doing for families and youth moving forward. All right. Let's take another quick break and then we'll close things out.